this is me and this is my new podcast for self-love, self-care, and motivation. Welcome back to my channel. Hi everyone, can we talk about something? Because I think we've all met at least one person who made us question our own memory, our own feelings, even our own reality. And the scary part, they rarely look like villains. They don't walk around wearing a sign that says, "Hi, I'm here to manipulate you." They are often charming, funny, confident. Sometimes they are incredibly caring. Sometimes they are the person everyone loves. Maybe they are your best friend, your partner, a family member, a coworker, or someone you just met who somehow makes you feel seen in a way nobody else ever has. That's what makes manipulation so confusing. We imagine manipulators as these obviously toxic people who are easy to spot. But real life doesn't usually work like that. Manipulation isn't always loud. Sometimes it's incredibly subtle. It's the tiny comments that make you second guess yourself. The conversations that somehow end you with apologizing, even though you started out believing you weren't in the wrong. The situation where you leave thinking, wait, what just happened? And if you've ever walked away from a conversation replaying every single word in your head, wondering if you are too sensitive, too dramatic, too emotional, I just want you to know something. That feeling doesn't automatically mean someone manipulated you. Sometimes people communicate poorly. Sometimes they have unresolved issues. Sometimes they simply see things differently than you do. Not every disagreement is manipulation. And that's important to remember because I don't want this episode to become another excuse to label everyone we don't like as a narcissist or a manipulator. Real manipulation is different. It's a pattern, a repeated way of making someone doubt themselves, question their instincts, or feel responsible for emotions and situations they were never theirs to carry in the first place. And once you recognize those patterns, you start seeing them everywhere. I want to make one thing clear. Today's episode isn't about becoming manipulative yourself. It's not about playing mind games. It's not about getting revenge. It's not about winning. Because honestly, when someone is committed to manipulating people, trying to beat them at their own game usually pulls you into the exact cycle you're trying to escape. Today, we're talking about becoming the kind of person who's incredibly difficult to manipulate in the first place. And believe it or not, those people all have one thing in common. They are emotionally intelligent. Not emotionally perfect, not emotionless, emotionally intelligent. And that's exactly why manipulators tend to lose interest in them. See, when people hear the phrase emotional intelligence, they usually picture someone who's calm all the time, someone who never gets upset, someone who's always patient and understanding. But emotional intelligence isn't about pretending you don't have emotions. It's actually the opposite. It's knowing what you are feeling, understanding why you are feeling it, and refusing to let someone else rewrite your reality. That's a huge difference. Because manipulation usually begins the moment someone convinces you to stop trusting yourself. Not trusting your memory, not trusting your intuition, not trusting your feelings. Instead, you slowly start trusting their version of events more than your own. And that shift, it's almost invisible. It doesn't happen overnight. Nope. Nobody wakes up one morning and suddenly says, "I don't trust myself anymore." It happens one conversation at a time. One guilty apology, one excuse, one you're overthinking, one you're too sensitive, and one I've never said that. Until eventually, you start editing yourself before anyone else even has the chance. And that's exhausting. Manipulators don't actually need you to be weak. That's one of the biggest myths out there. People often imagine that manipulators only target insecure people. But that's not necessarily true. In fact, some of the kindest, smartest, most compassionate people are actually easier to manipulate than they realize. Why? Because they assume everyone thinks the way they do. They believe honesty is normal. They give people the benefit of the doubt. They want to understand both sides. They hate hurting people's feelings. They'd rather have an uncomfortable conversation with themselves than make someone else feel uncomfortable. Those are beautiful qualities, seriously. The world needs more compassionate people, but compassion without boundaries can become an open invitation for people who know exactly how to take advantage of it. And that's where emotional intelligence changes everything. Because emotionally intelligent people don't lose their kindness. They simply stop sacrificing themselves to prove they are kind. That's a completely different mindset. They can understand why someone behaves the way they do without believing they have to tolerate it. They can empathize without becoming responsible for fixing another person's choices. And maybe that's the first mindset shift I want us to make together today. Understanding someone explains their behavior, and it doesn't excuse it. What I also noticed is that manipulators don't usually have a problem with confident people. They have a problem with calm people. And those aren't always the same thing. Confidence can be loud, but calm is quiet. Confidence can say, "I'm right." But calm says, "I don't need to convince you." That's a completely different type of power. Because manipulation often depends on getting a reaction. Think about it. If someone says something to hurt you and you immediately become defensive, they now control where the conversation goes. If someone accuses you of something unfair, and then you spend the next 20 minutes trying to prove you're not that person, they've already shifted the focus. You're no longer talking about what happened, you're talking about defending your character. That's why emotionally intelligent people don't react to every invitation. Not every accusation deserves a response. Not every opinion deserves a debate. And not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. And I know that's difficult, especially if you're someone who values honesty. Because when you know your intentions were good, every part of you wants to say, no, that's not what I meant. Please, I would never do that to you. Let me explain. Sometimes that's appropriate. Healthy relationships are built on communication. But sometimes you're not having a conversation. You're being pulled into a cycle. And cycles don't end because you explain better. They end because you stop participating. And that doesn't mean you're becoming cold. It doesn't mean you're ignoring people. It simply means recognizing when someone is interested in understanding you and when they're only interested in exhausting you. There is a huge difference here. Sometimes we become so focused on understanding why someone hurt us that we completely forget to ask whether we should keep giving them access to us. Maybe they had a difficult childhood. Maybe they were betrayed before. Maybe they are insecure. Maybe they genuinely don't know any better. All of those things can be true, and they still don't erase the impact of their behavior. Understanding someone is not the same as volunteering to be hurt by them. You can have compassion for someone's story while also deciding you don't want to be part of the next chapter. Some people don't misunderstand you because your explanation was unclear. They misunderstand you because the version of you they have created in their mind is more convenient for them. If they see you as selfish, every boundary will look selfish. If they see you as difficult, every disagreement will confirm that belief. No amount of explaining can compete with someone who's committed to seeing only what supports their narrative. So emotionally intelligent people stop chasing understanding from people who've already decided not to understand. Instead, they put that energy somewhere much more valuable, into knowing themselves. And there is so much peace in that. One of my favorite reminders is this. You don't need everyone to agree with your reality for it to be real. Imagine how much energy we spend trying to collect proof. Proof that we are kind enough, smart enough, good enough, reasonable enough, as if our worth depends on a valid vote. It doesn't. Your reality is still your reality, even if someone refuses to acknowledge it. Your feelings are still valid, even if someone dismisses them. Your boundary is still a boundary, even if someone rolls their eyes at it. And here's what usually happens when someone realizes they can't manipulate you anymore. They don't always apologize. Sometimes they call you cold. Sometimes they say you've changed. Sometimes they accuse you of being distant. And sometimes they tell other people you've become difficult. Because ask yourself this: are you difficult? Or are you simply no longer convenient? Because, again, there is a difference. The version of you who answered every call, who apologized first, who kept giving second, third, and 10th chances, that version was easier to access. Now you're pausing, thinking, observing, and respecting your own limits. Of course, some people will notice the difference. So before we end today's episode, I want to leave you with one question. Who's been benefiting from me constantly questioning myself? Sit with that. Don't rush to answer it. Just let the question stay with you for a while. Because sometimes the answers that change our lives don't arrive in the middle of the conversation. They arrive in the quiet after it. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. Thank you so much for spending time with me. If this episode resonated with you, I hope it reminded you that emotional intelligence isn't about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming so deeply connected to yourself that no one else gets to define your reality for you. That was all for this episode. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. Have a nice day.